Words Don't Do It Justice, brought to you by 314 Publishing and Imperial Dreams Productions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here. It is that time again. This is Words Don't Do It Justice. This is our monthly podcast. And one more time before I take a fairly extended break from hosting this podcast, I am the Ruthless Wonder, not a Ruthless Wonder. And we are here with our monthly Words Don't Do It Justice podcast. Now, some of you may have seen our Facebook page earlier this weekend. We did advertise that we're going to be talking about a fairly controversial topic, but you know you don't get dessert first. We're going to talk about internet media versus traditional media, and then we're going to get to interracial dating. But before we get into the topic, I want to introduce both of our guests for this particular monthly podcast. Got to thank them both. They have agreed to help out in what could possibly be the second most controversial thing we've said this week. I guess Tuesday and Wednesday probably got out of hand. All right, first up, we have both in wonderful sunny Florida at the moment. We have two guests. First up, it's Mr. Hanson himself. Eric.
Hello. How you doing, Matt?
And, of course, the lovely and wonderful, the brilliant and talented Miss Jaime McNair.
Oh, thank you. Hello, this is Jaime.
So they're going to help me out this week in talking about two subjects that I'm sure folks will have quite a few opinions about. Now, we're going to get right into the topic once we come back from this first break. And like I said, we'll have two segments. First up, internet media versus traditional media, followed by interracial dating. You'll hear it here and only here on wordsdon'tdoitjustice.com. This is Words Don't Do It Justice, the podcast. Words Don't Do It Justice, brought to you by 314 Publishing and Imperial Dreams Productions. Don't forget to check out Words Don't Do It Justice at WDDIJcast. Words Don't Do It Justice, the last Monday of every month at 2:30. All right, folks, we're back from the break, and you are here live with the Ruthless Wonder, not a Ruthless Wonder. And, of course, my two guests, Eric and Jaime. And we're going to talk first about internet media versus traditional media. Now, the reason this topic in particular came up today was because, well, we're a blog site. We talk opinion and news all the time. I don't know anybody that's coming to us just for the news, and I hope no one is, since we tend to take time to talk about the subject. But it is one of the things that has come up, and I want to kind of get both of our guests' feelings on sort of where we are now as opposed to, 10 years earlier, it was a weird thing for someone to have a blog. It was sort of an odd place to be. But if you look now, you have gossip sites that report on celebrities that are in blog form only. You have news, traditional news media using blogs to get out additional news. But you also have a lot of folks who break major stories for good or ill. I mean, for every Julian Assange, you have a Perez Hilton. But you have folks breaking news, important news that people need to know, that don't use the traditional channels. They don't have a news radio. They don't have a news television station. They don't use cable news. They aren't even a newspaper. They are simply a blogger who happens to catch all this information. And I want to know first to Jaime and then to Eric, what each of you all sort of think about this place that we're in now, where you have this sort of very quick to find internet news sources and still have your traditional newspaper, radio, TV, cable news sources. And we'll go first to Jaime.
All right. Well, I, for one, appreciate the new form of news because it allows for freedom of speech, and in America, we have freedom of speech here, whereas with traditional news, they're greatly limited in what they can say, and I don't think that's fair to the people, but I do appreciate the accountability that comes behind traditional media, or traditional news. So I guess on the fence. I like them both. I appreciate them both.
That's totally understandable. Eric, how about yourself?
I mean, well, first, I'll completely agree with Jamie. The big difference is the accountability. You have, guys that are looking for clickbait online, and they're going to just put out whatever they can just to get the clicks, and they're not going to vet their sources. They're just going to say it because no one's holding them accountable. On the other end, I think they are completely complementary. I like my regular news. I like my internet news. I like the fact that I have them both. I think there's still going to be a place for traditional media and the new internet media well into the future.
Well, and that's that's totally a good position to have. I wonder though, and this kind of gets into the sort of the heart of the issue. As we move to a point where it's faster to get even partially vetted news from an online source, which can go straight to your phone far faster than you can get to a newspaper. Is this sort of the video kill the radio star sort of situation? Are we going to a place where it will be impossible to truly run a 24-hour news organization of any kind, be that television, radio, or print, where you can actually break news when the vetting process is almost as fast as getting it? I mean, I think right now we're at a place where you can't check the sources on news as fast as you can get the information from someone. But it does seem, as much damage as things like Twitter news can be, it does seem as though we've gotten to a point where if I know this information, I can get 4 sources on it faster using my phone and text messages than I can doing the traditional process of calling up the alleged sources, getting an interview, sit down with them to find out how exactly honest they are, and then doing the back checking. Is that a good thing? Is it a good thing that we can check the news almost as fast as we can find and in some cases make up the news? And we'll go to Eric since we went to Jamie first the first time.
I mean, if you're saying we as in like the standard consumer of the news, it's just not something people do. We don't usually fact check the news. We kind of take it as read. If somebody's presenting us a story, if they're talking about, Chechnya, you're going to just take it as this is the truth. I mean, I kind of agree with you. It should be easy to get your facts right, but who actually goes out and does that all the time? Very few people. How many times have you seen that Firefly is getting picked up by Netflix, joke going through Facebook? People don't check that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that sort of leads to it, and I'll pose this question to you, Jamie. I mean, what effect on the news that you read, the news you actually pay attention to personally, does the fact that anyone can make a fake Facebook post, that you have whole websites dedicated to fake news like Hustlers and The Onion? What effect does that have on stories you see personally, be that on your social media timelines or just updates from different news sources? How does that affect you, knowing that it could as easily be false as it is true or satirical in nature?
They don't really affect me that much. I find those to be humorous, and if something does grab my attention, that is when I would move on to find more reliable sources. And luckily, a lot of news sources and papers and like Yahoo and whatnot they're pretty quick. I think they're trying to keep up with today's fast-paced media and information age. So even with the blogs and the Twitter, even if they're wrong, they could easily update quickly because the internet is very quick. So I don't see the problem with the random, probably fake post on Facebook because, like you said, it's so easy to go fact check yourself and click on the next source and then the next source and the next source, and then to figure out on your own what's the possible truth here.
But I mean, who does that? Short of like very few people that go to, say, Snopes, who really does check their facts?
I do. I watched The Watchmen. I thought you knew that.
It's interesting enough.
Well, you all are just extraordinary individuals, but I mean, Can't you agree that the common person doesn't?
Well, and that's why this topic's come up, honestly, is because, all right, the three of us, and for disclosure to everyone who's listened to this podcast, the three of us, went to law school together. I graduated before they did, but, they're still awesome to me. But we're three people who have been through law school, and so just by our very nature, we check more often than the normal person. When it comes down to your average everyday American, but really just your average everyday person, is this a dangerous point where we can say, yeah, I'm going to put out this news story I don't know is true, no matter how big or small I am as a media site, and then if someone proves to me that it's not true, then I'll print an update. Well, at that point, you've already influenced however many people hit your site. I mean, not to take a personal example from our podcast, from our blog, but if my open letter from Tuesday had been the result of a fake email that had never been sent out, then I could update my blog and say, oh, hey, that email was fake. I want to apologize for that. But by that point, by Wednesday afternoon, we were already at over 1,000 views of just that one document.
That's true. And
I guess that's the sort of the danger I'm talking about. For us, yes, it's much easier for us to say, well, I check. I know that not to trust just one news source, because I know not to check just one source when I'm writing stuff for legal purposes. But for the average person who doesn't do that, are we making it more dangerous for them by saying, well, I don't care what the actual content is. If I've got enough to go with the story, I'm going to print it and then later retract it if I'm wrong. And then someone's got to prove to me I'm wrong in order for me to do that. Is that a dangerous position to be in? And we'll go to Eric first, since we went to Jamie first the last time.
I mean, I think that is the position everyone's in. First of all, no one holds you accountable. And secondly, you have encouragement to go with it. You need to get those clicks. Everybody needs the clicks because that's how their revenue is generated. I think that could possibly create a dangerous situation. I think, though, we may move to more respected individuals or individuals we learn to respect, and then we kind of can sift them out of the rest of the podcast and the rest of the news agencies. Go to the Ruthless Wonder because he checks his sources. That could be a selling point for you or for all bloggers. Instead of going for the quick clickbait, some people might try to play the long con like that.
Yeah, and that's definitely a way to take it. Now, you actually brought up a very interesting point, going to our blog because I check my sources. Does it make a difference, the kind of news that you're getting? For instance, all right, our website is clearly based on doing sort of a lifestyle blog. It's social commentary. It's our opinions. There are some times where we decide to really research a point and make a hardcore, sort of news-based article, but it's never breaking news. Do you treat places like the CNN blog differently than folks that have straight-up gossip sites? For instance, I use Perez Hilton only because he's the most well-known among sort of general mainstream culture. But you have sites like Vlad TV, thisis50.com, not necessarily Wordstar because they don't really do news, but the different gossip folks in different arenas, TMZ as well. You have these folks who break rumor-based news, sort of almost a internet paparazzi setup. Do you trust the news site more than you trust the gossip site who may do the same thing and check their sources? TMZ tends to not put stuff out that it doesn't have at least a major source for. CNN tends to do the same thing. Do we treat them differently, and should we treat them differently? And of course, we'll go to Jamie since we went to Eric first that last time.
Okay. I think to an extent you should treat them differently, and it also depends on the blog. Like a CNN blog, once again, there's still an accountability issue there. So of course you would treat it a little differently when listening to their perspective. Whereas a Paris Hilton or a TMZ, Well, TMZ is a little different too, because there's also a little accountability there, because that's on TV, and they have to answer to anything that they say that's outrageous also. So, yeah, you would treat them differently. And like you said, we're all from law school, so we kind of look at things a little differently than the lay person. Whereas we can find things and see that it's just silly. Other people would say, that's fact. That's absolutely right. But those people, they probably already have in their head that they want to believe that anyway. People tend to listen to what they already think is right anyway. So you would just treat it differently, just based off of, one, the accountability issue, and two, what your perspective is up front.
Eric, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think they're just two different mediums that you're explaining, right? One doesn't go to TMZ for hard news. It's a gossip. It's gossip by design. Of course I don't think we should hold them to the same standards. That's just gossip. And at some point, it doesn't matter if it's true or not, and I don't think it ever has mattered if it's true or not. But, if BBC started running stuff that they weren't checking, I mean, clearly there would be a problem. I hold my news organizations to a higher standard than I would my, celebrity stuff or even the infotainment stuff. Jon Stewart, although I think he's really good at fact checking, I'm probably not going to scrutinize him as heavily as BBC, right?
And that's totally fair. One of the things that I kind of want to transition as we stay on this topic, do you think it's a good idea, because this has become a sort of thing more and more often being seen, for all of these traditional news media organizations to so heavily embrace internet media? I mean, not necessarily just having a website, having a blog. I mean, this idea that you have a CNN section dedicated to the same kind of salacious news you get out of TMZ. They're just not on television. You have Fox having their sort of totally opinion-based, morning show that's also broadcast online. You have all of these newspapers. I mean, look, every newspaper has a website, and every newspaper has a subscription reader service for their website, but they also have a blog for their website that handles smaller stories. Is that a good thing to essentially stifle potential new internet media-based organizations by having so much influence from traditional media? I think we went to Jaime first the last time, so we'll go to Eric first this time.
Yeah, what's interesting, there's a lot of, I can't think of the name right now, I don't have time to look it up, but there's a lot of moves from the news companies to create their own sites that instead of bullet pointing the news, they're actually putting the stories into context. And I wish I could think of them right now. That sort of blending of the mediums, I'm totally fine with. That's great. That's sort of using the medium for what it's good at. Tell a flashy story and let me go and get some more in-depth coverage on this special site you have. But, I mean, I hate it when I see Twitter stuff on a presidential debate. It's laughable. It's kind of disgusting. Silly Pants 395 says the president looks stupid. And they scroll that on the bottom of an actual presidential debate with poor old Walter Cronkite talking. So, I guess take them or leave them. Some of it can be good, some of it can be bad.
And Jaime, I want you to key on that. How do you feel about that sort of idea that now, because of how much traditional media has had to embrace internet media culture, you have things like the comment sections for every news article you read are filled with some of the most hateful and vile arguments between people.
It was pure filth.
At every level. Jaime, go ahead and let me know how you feel about that.
Of course, I don't like the fact that people are aggressive and mean under comments, but media, it's a business, and they have to get ratings. They have to get people to want to read or to want to watch, and to allow them to comment, it brings in people to view. So you have to take the bad with the good. Once again, there's freedom of speech. And if you, let's say, delete these horrible comments, then you deter people from wanting to comment, which deters people from wanting to look at your news station or read your pages. So you have to take the good with the bad when it comes to that. That's my take on it.
That's an interesting thought. I think even before I started running the blog, I had an opinion about these comment sections, because a lot of times the articles that I read for personal reasons, not necessarily as research for any particular point or for work-related reasons, the ones I just read for in my personal lifetime on hobbies I have, interests I have, you'll have an article that's really just simple, like, hey, best example I can give is a few weeks back you had a bunch of kids putting up on their Facebook all the Ivy League colleges they got into. And I talked about on the first podcast for the site how awesome I thought that was, that was a great moment. And whenever you see the articles about those kids doing that, the article might be wonderful. They were praising these kids for academic achievement, and then the comment section was just like, pick an insult that you could possibly think of about being a racist, sexist, just general idiot of any fashion, and we're gonna put that comments in there. And then you look at different scientific sites that have had to close down their comment sections because of the amount of hateful comments that come on their articles. To a degree, don't you all think it might take away from the credibility of the source if you're reading the article and then see the kind of, and not even just trolls, just people who fervently disagree with something being so hateful in the comment section? You said you didn't want to read an article that no one's commenting on, Jamie, but what about the ones where all the comments are negative comments, attacking whoever liked the article, much less attacking the article itself? Isn't that just as much of a problem? And isn't that something that unfortunately we've had to deal with more of as internet media has become a bigger thing? And we'll go back to Jamie first time.
Yeah, that's a problem, but I still believe if you're going to allow people to comment, they're going to say something negative or positive depending on who they are. But then again, I still feel like it's a business, and you want people to read. And if they're commenting, that means they're reading. And if people go to the site just to see what somebody commented under the article, that means somebody else just read it too. So it's the bad with the good. I mean, a lot of people, when they have something negative to say, they're going to voice it. And some people, when they have something positive to say, they may not voice it on a comment. They may just voice it to their friend. So the negative comments, I don't think they outweigh the gain from the actual story. And I don't think it really deters the source or the writer, because you can always have an anonymous source. And a writer is still going to get paid for writing the story. And if people are commenting, that means it's being read. That's my view.
Eric, you had something that you want to say about the topic?
Yeah, I mean, I just think I think at its heart, it's actually generational. Where an older person, and I use older loosely, they might be tentative at the comment section. All the hate in the standard YouTube comment is well known, but maybe the younger generation doesn't even consider it. That's just how they've grown up. That's how people are. There's trolls in the world. They just ignore it and take the information for what it is. Yeah?
I agree.
And that's totally fair. I do have to say, one of the funniest things I always see is people that purposely are creating memes using comment sections. And this has been on Facebook quite some time ago, but it was right after the Kanye West rant interview. Somebody put up a picture of their kid in and y'all know the shirt, the U.S. Polo Association T-shirts and polos and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire comment section was just, "It ain't Ralph though," the whole way down. Oh, I've shared that way too many times that I should be admitting to, and I thought it was hilarious. But it is kind of that thing, like I feel like the reason internet media works, and I'm sort of keeping us away from the big portion of this conversation I want to get to, but I feel like internet media works because of both the negative and the positive. But I wonder how much damage we're doing to the credibility of news by putting it into the internet media lens. Here's what I mean. YouTube is different than CNN. CNN is different than BBC to me, but when it comes down to it, they're both news and they have internet presences. I should not look at a BBC comment section and see the same thing I see on a YouTube comment section. But as a business, they have to allow for that. And I think to a degree, this is only my personal opinion, I think to a degree that harms their ability to truly be a news organization. And please, give me your feelings on it. But what I want to say is I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing for society that news organizations are being used in sort of the internet culture. But I do think it's a bad thing that we can't really, and that's the reason for this topic, we can't really call online news anything other than media. And that puts it in the same category as a blog site, as a rumor mill site, as, a satirical comedy site. That The Onion is as much an internet media group as the MSNBC page. That Hustlers is as much a internet media site as Gossip Viv is. That ThisIs50.com and Vlad TV are as important to internet media as Huffington Post, the Washington Post, and the New York Times. When they come onto the internet, they have all become internet media as opposed to being internet news. And I wonder, is that a dangerous thing? And I do honestly feel like that may be a dangerous thing, that we don't make that difference, that delineation between the two. But I want to get you all's thoughts. So we'll start with Eric since we started with Jaime last time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to use internet media and sort of paint it with a very broad brush and make it include all of those things, it could cause consumer confusion when you have the Onion somehow being confused with the BBC. I mean, I think that would kind of be a stretch. I think, yeah, if you think about it, the consumers are too informed. They know where they're at. They know what they're getting and why they're there. I think long are the days where somebody stumbles onto a site and is tricked by it. The Onion doesn't trick people as much as they used to back in the day, sort of thing. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I don't see a problem then painting it as a broad stroke and just calling it internet media. The consumers are too educated.
I'm not so much calling them the same as in the Onion trying to trick people, so much as their value to internet, to where people get their information from, is similar to the value people assess to getting it from what are normal, traditional, legitimate news sources. That it's okay to go to the Onion to read a story, and it's given the same credence and respect as going to Huffington Post to read a story. But we'll let Jaime get in here real quick before we keep going. Okay.
Well, I see both of your points of views on that, but I do see a major distinction between a Huffington Post and what do you call the Onion, because we are informed, but I do know people who seek out information that is that conflicts with what's traditional or what we should know. Such as, I'll give an example. I had someone tell me, and I guess you guys might find this funny. I thought it was funny. Told me that taxes for Congress to tax the United States citizens was not constitutional. And I said, well, where did you hear that? And they said, well, I read it off of something. And I'm like, well, where did they get that? Because it is Constitution. It's actually what Article 3's 16, Section 6, I don't know, something. And I was like, it is constitutional. So there are people who actually go out to find information that they're looking for. The only reason why you would even say that is because you're trying to find somebody to validate your view anyway that you think taxes are unconstitutional. So people who go to, I guess, would you say The Onion? I'm not sure what you said, but I think they're going to it for validation and also maybe for just the entertainment of it. But people also know if you want news that has been vetted, news that has been triple checked, then you would go to a CNN, even a Yahoo News, because they have people on scene, and if they mess up, they'll redact or they'll put in a comment, so you know where to get your good news. So I think there's a major distinction, and for those to put those together, they're purposely wanting to do that anyway. They're being ignorant because they want to be ignorant.
And Mr. Hanson did come up with the exact location. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1, Taxing and Spending Clause.
Right.
I trust you, too, because Lord knows I'm not cracking any books from constitutional law anytime soon.
Oh, that was not off the top of my head. Don't worry.
I tried. I was wrong. But there it is. Article 1, Section 8, the Taxing and Spending Clause. And someone sitting there trying to tell me that that tax to be taxed is unconstitutional and that they got it from a reliable source. Well, you had to go looking for that. You had to have already believed that for someone to tell you, and you just take it at face value.
I'll tell you, when I was delivering pizzas, I had a pocket Constitution in my car for when I encountered that exact argument. I had encountered it so often. So even pizza guy me was still like, read the Constitution.
Well, that's my view on the situation.
Mr. Wonder or Mr. Ruthless? How do you prefer we address you?
Just remember, it's the Ruthless Wonder, not a Ruthless Wonder.
The Ruthless Wonder.
Who appears only on wordsdon'tdoitjustice.com, WDDIJ.com, wordsdon'tdoitjustice.com, people. Don't forget it. But that's one of the things that I often have to deal with myself, because once I got home, apparently everybody decided, hey, we're going to ask Matthew law questions. Is that people always come up to me, so, like, income tax, I don't have to pay those, right? Yes, you do have to pay those. Yes, those are important.
Right.
But it's that idea that, if you saw it online somewhere, it might be or must be true. And that kind of gets us to sort of the last bit of this particular topic, and the thing that I'm actually most concerned with. All right, one of the shows that I watch is an internet-based media show. They are internet news show, but they interject their personal opinions from time to time. And, folks are going to make all kinds of assumptions about my political leanings after I mention this particular show, and I don't care because, well, people should know by now I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm an imperialist, and I don't apologize for that. But I watch the Young Turks, and I don't watch them all the time, but if I don't catch their evening show, then I'll catch some of their YouTube videos. And I watch the Young Turks mainly because it's more convenient than watching most news, because I know they're going to cover more. And it's the same way with the BBC. I can hop online and catch a BBC video whenever I need to. The BBC's news organization is amazing for that. They hopped in and said, no, our nightly show, we're going to get segments of and make it always available for our subscribers. And so I subscribe to the BBC. I watch regularly and I read articles regularly there. Same with the Young Turks. But I watch the Young Turks because I know not only am I going to get the story, I'm going to get how they felt about the story. I'm going to get some additional pieces to it. And in the way traditional news has dealt with internet media and internet news, I wonder, and please feel free to give me just your personal thoughts. You don't have to have any sources or backup on it. I wonder what you all think about the idea that maybe we are moving to a point where all of our news media, that the internet becomes our platform for getting news, as opposed to traditional media. Like, not necessarily that the death of the evening news broadcast on television, but that the internet becomes where the majority of the planet gets news from. And so internet media organizations become internet news organizations, where the Young Turks isn't just one of the many, isn't just one, but it's one of the many online only, news organizations. And so that's two questions. Do you think we're headed that direction? And two, do you think that's a good idea? And we will start with Eric, because we started with Jaime last time.
Yeah, well, I think this is actually one of the key places where you and I will differ. I kind of want my news to be sterile. I want it to have, no spin politically if that's ever been possible in the world. I just want it to be the facts and then allow me to make my decision. If then later I want to go to a site where it's more infotainment that's talking about the thing that I received earlier, I see no problem in that. I guess Young Turks is good for you. I mean, I'm a Daily Show guy. I don't like the idea of your news having that sort of character with it. And I don't know, maybe that's just because I kind of have an old school head, but I think, news should be like science. We should just have the facts, and we should make our decisions on those facts.
And Jaime?
I agree with Eric. News should be facts, and having a political spin or agenda on it, that's a taint, and that's a taint that's been around for a while now. But whether it be internet media or news or newspaper or television, it should be facts. And of course, you kind of have to make things a little entertaining to keep people interested, more so the new generation than the old, because they're the ones who read the newspaper. But if the closer to the facts, the better. And I don't like the ideals and the political spins that the traditional, like Fox or CNN, tries to throw in things, or so they say. But yeah, for the most part, I agree with what Eric had to say.
Well, and I don't think, honestly, that I disagree with you, Eric. I watched the Young Turks sort of in the same reason that I watched The Daily Show. And I do watch The Daily Show, and I did watch The Colbert Report, even though it's going to go away and he's going to be taking over for Letterman. But I mean, that's a successful internet-only news media organization. As we continue to have this rise of internet use for getting news information, are we running into a point where the Young Turks will be, like The Daily Show, the news media organization that you expect to get opinion from? Or not even that. There is not a right-wing, because there are definitely liberals over there, there's not a right-wing version of the Young Turks anywhere. Al Jazeera basically buys up anyone that gets like that, and they've put them under the Al Jazeera banner. So there's no version of Al Jazeera on the internet where it's just an internet-based media. Are we headed to a point where, just like you guys want, there's going to be an internet news reader that handles the news just like, Ted Koppel would, or just like, Katie Kirk when she was handling this? Like, are we going to have an internet-based Brian Williams in the future to handle news, but it's only online? Are we going to have a future where you have essentially traditional media going away from our televisions and cable boxes, and at least to the degree they are now, and there being sort of an internet-based version of them? And that's really more my question. I'm not saying necessarily that every news media, every internet news organization should go the way of the Young Turks, but that maybe we have a point where we're going to have the same variety in news on television and news on the internet in the form of larger scale internet news media organizations. And to Eric, so we'll go to Jaime first on that.
Well, yeah, totally. I definitely agree that, or think that we're going to go to that. We're probably already there in many major news companies because of our society. We are a fast-paced society. We all have iPhones or something to similar, iPads, and
Team Android. Just got to say that.
Or tablets or whatever. So we're a fast-paced society, fast-paced worlds outside of third world. So yeah, I think that would be beneficial even for the news companies to add that aspect to the internet, brand new spokesmen or what do you call it? People speaking. And I think that they're going to get paid for it. There's advertisements, so I do see that being a major part of our news media in the future, just to keep up with the times, and it will be actually beneficial to the news organizations to add that aspect to their news.
And Eric, you had something you want to say on the topic?
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe it's stretching the analogy too far, but in a way, I think the news subreddits kind of work that way, where you have a constant stream of different news, and instead of one news reader, it's sort of the collective that, you know, upvotes the more compelling stories to the top. But, you know, that's one of the places I stop by pretty much on a daily basis, is the World News subreddit. Has great stories, and I've been very informed on, you know, lots of things that my friends haven't because of it.
All right. Well, I can't say that we're looking forward to the day when Words Under Justice becomes its own news media organization, but you know, I think the topic originally came up for me because I wondered how legitimate we sound with some of the things that we deal with, when it's much more news-based than opinion-based for our blog. And then I started looking at some of the other places that I go to read that are not just opinion, you know, blogs, or not just opinion websites, that are really trying to break or otherwise analyze news that's come out and sort of get that news out to people. And so this idea of how legitimate are we when we stand up to you know, the local Fox affiliate, the local CBS affiliate, the local, you know, NBC affiliate, as news, when those organizations don't do well when they're online. One of the things that we looked at when I originally started researching this topic, a friend and I were looking at the number of hits for local television stations on the same news stories that they put into the nightly newscast. And it was interesting to read. I don't have the numbers on me in front of me because they're on a different computer, but it's interesting that the most popular news story on a given day for their website, because it's usually up the day after the newscast that night, doesn't do well because they don't approach it correctly. So what if every local news station was being run like an internet news organization is being run, where you get those instant flash news stories that have been sort of checked quickly? How would that affect their nightly television ratings? And it's an interesting thing when you see if a news story appears before the nightly news, how it affects how the viewership is different between that and the day before. So that's where we kind of got on this topic. But you know, folks I'm sure are waiting for us to get to the second topic, so we're going to cut this one off right here, and folks will be right back after a quick break and some advertising of some of our favorite products, services, and other websites that we tend to frequent. So this is the Ruthless Wonder, not a Ruthless Wonder, and this is the Words Don't Do It Justice podcast. Welcome to the birth of an empire.
Why, hello, Jimmy. Why the long face?
Well, Mr. Johnny Balsa, sir, I'm a little sad because I need more radio drama in my life.
Huh? That's so. Let me ask you something, Jimbo. Do you like starships?
Well, yeah, they're cool.
What about space mercenaries?
Oh, yeah, I love those guys.
Do you love space battles in galactic space?
Oh my god, yes, I love that.
Do you like blasting off into space, Jimmy?
Oh my god, yes. Yes, please, I want to blast off. Yeah.
Jimmy, are you ready to join Team Star Fox in space?
Oh my goodness, Mr. Balsley, yes. I want to join the Star Fox team and blast off into galactic war space.
Then tune in to Project Zion's G Diffuser 01.
Brought to you by WDDIJcast Radio.
What is good? It's your friendly neighborhood nerd, the Bobo, and if you're looking for a place to kind of kick up your feet and get a little news, some reviews, talk with some interesting people, and a whole lot of laughs, then come kick it with me and my crew, here on Bobo's Block. We do it for the nerds, freaks, and geeks alike. Heck, even for the geeks in training. So, let's have a block party, people. Bobo's Block, only on WDDIJcast Radio Network.
What's going on, everybody? It's your girl Saki. I'm chilling with my sisters Tenchi and Mako, and we're here to give you the 411 on our new show, Nexus Gen Radio.
That's right. After Dark Radio is now the new and improved Nexus Gen Radio. We're still bringing you the hottest topics, steaming stories, smooth poetry, and latest news.
So do us a favor and catch us on Facebook.com/Nexus Gen Radio. We'll see you guys there.
The sun had begun to set. The man walks onto his porch and stares off onto the horizon. There is a cool, comforting breeze. The man stretches his arms out wide and stands on his tippy toes. Suddenly, the air gets still. The sun disappears behind dark clouds, and a shadowy figure approaches the man from a ways off in the distance. The man becomes uneasy. He peers around, trying to see if anyone else notices the stranger approaching. The man begins to sweat, his hands shake, and he feels a little faint.
Please, I can't decide,
he finally says, wiping the sweat from his brow. The shadowy figure stops a few yards away. It stands perfectly still. Doesn't move. If you can't decide, you should listen to Screen Visions Radio. Huh? Desmond Childs breaks down everything you could possibly want to know about movies. He'll help you decide.
Oh, wow.
But you better train.
Train?
He mostly reviews Asian films and has marathons and such. So practice your kung fu. You may need it. Screen Visions Movie Blog Podcast is a show about my journey through the world of Asian cinema. I sometimes dabble in other films, but I always cover what's going on in Hollywood, Bollywood, or wherever the latest stories are breaking. So do yourself a favor and tune in. I'll be waiting. Then we can decide on what movie you want to watch. Screen Visions Radio, a proud member of the WDDIJcast Radio Network.
Hey guys, what's up? This is DJ Horace of Wise Guy Jukebox, also known as the Almighty Bird Chest, or the Chill Eagle with the headphones. If you're interested in listening, talking, or discussing all things music involving an assortment of topics, check out the show. Won't hurt till you try it. Also check out my album reviews at wiseguyjukebox.wordpress.com, or like my Facebook page for weekly jams at facebook.com/wiseguyjukebox. Other than that, stay slick. I'll catch you guys later.
Do It Justice, brought to you by 314 Publishing and Imperial Dreams Productions. Don't forget to check out Words Don't Do It Justice at WDDIJ.com. Words Don't Do It Justice, the last Monday of every month at 2:30. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. This is the Words Don't Do It Justice podcast. I am the Ruthless Wonder, not a Ruthless Wonder. And we're back with Eric and Jaime. We're going to be talking about our second topic for today. Yes, that's right. We're going to get to the far more salacious, far more angry. And please remember, send your hate mail to yourruthlesswonder@gmail.com. Don't bother my guests. Bring it all. Give me your hate. All of it. We're going to talk about interracial dating and its place in modern society. Just to give you a quick background as to why this particular topic came up, folks may remember that I have done probably about 3 different times stories where I've lamented the issues related to dating, and I try to stay away from them in general. But this weekend was another one of those times where we've had to relook at the old things I've done and, of course, deal with conversations I've had. This past few weeks and leading up to this particular podcast, we've seen a lot of interesting issues in interracial dating. Obviously, the immediate one is the Donald Sterling and his is-she ex-girlfriend, was possibly ex-girlfriend, now wasn't at the time of the recording, where he's admitted to his racist thoughts. We've had Paul Ryan during his presidential campaign have his racial thoughts, yet still had a previous black girlfriend while he was in college. You have a lot of pushback between, and I'm going to get to the holy grail of scandal in a second. We have a lot of pushback between who is the target of the interracial dating as opposed to whether or not it's okay. So I want to start us in a fairly safe space and just have each of my guests, because Lord knows we don't need to hear me talk more, each of my guests talk about their thoughts on interracial dating in our sort of modern society. And if you want to keep it to just America, that's fine, but just interracial dating in general. And ladies first.
My take on interracial dating, I am down for the cause. I don't see a problem with interracial dating in certain parts of America. In some parts, it might be a little scary. Those who know me, I'm from Mississippi, and in some parts of Mississippi, it's a scary avenue to take. But I don't see a problem with interracial dating.
And Mr. Hanson?
Just to add one more name to your list, I just loved how Strom Thurmond, the cranky old senator that ran as a segregationist, ended up having, an entire secret black family. I just thought that was just too wonderful. But yeah, no, of course, I think interracial dating's fine. I pulled up a Jamie Lannister quote for you. We don't get to choose we don't get to choose who we love. That's true. So how can anybody really have a problem with it? Of course, you say that, and of course, we all know there's plenty of areas where people do have a problem with it. So that kind of affects the reality of things, but, just know what towns to stay out of, I suppose.
That is kind of one of the things that does come up a lot. Now, and, we're going to get to something that I know no one here is going to have a problem with, but will find absolutely hilarious. Let's start off with the tragic portion of it. Here in town, and just a week and a half ago, I can't believe it's just been that short amount of time, the shooter at the Jewish Community Center was in basically Overland Park, Kansas, which is right across state line for me here in Kansas City. And it has been found out just recently that just prior to turning on the KKK, and becoming a witness that had to go into witness protection, that he was arrested, get this, for soliciting the services of a prostitute. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, okay, so this is just that's a black woman prostitute. That would be too easy. He was arrested with a black male prostitute dressed in drag.
It's a gift from the comedy gods.
Yeah, Chris Titus, always says stuff. It's like, I wish I could write that joke, but I'm not that funny. Yeah, I don't know that anyone's that funny. So the KKK Grand Imperial Dragon was caught with a male transvestite or transsexual prostitute before he turned on the KKK and then shut up a Jewish community center and didn't actually kill any Jewish people. Now, the killing part is very sad, and the fact that he probably participated in some lynchings, cross burnings, and other hateful material when he was in the KKK is also very bad. But the idea that that guy has a thing for dudes in women's clothing, and not just dudes in women's clothing, black dudes in women's clothing, is pretty funny to me.
Yeah, completely agree. Like, Conan O'Brien, he sent his writers home for the day. Like, everybody got the day off. This thing happened. We're fine.
Yeah, but follow me on this, because there actually is a point to me bringing that up. I feel like a lot of the problem people have with interracial dating in sort of the modern age, not necessarily folks that are significantly older than us, but folks that are around our age, those folks that have a problem in that fashion, have a problem because so much of their upbringing has been a pushback against that. And they've had this desire that to them is supposed to feel unnatural because it's not allegedly natural to the people that raised them. That essentially it's a nurture run amok. That they have to believe it, because if what they've been told is wrong and they are okay to love somebody who doesn't share the same melanin count as they do, that somehow like everything else about society be wrong. And follow me on this. I feel like we're getting to a point where we will be in a better place in society when that is no longer the sort of way folks approach interracial relationships. So my problem is, I feel like these people have repressed sexual desires, and it's based on this constant nurture argument of you can't like them. So essentially, their internal self wanted to rebel against what they were being told, but because of the environment they were in, they couldn't rebel against that and go with the people that they feel attracted to. And that causes this unnecessary amount of vehement anger against those kinds of relationships. And we'll go to Eric since we went to Jamie first.
Yeah, I don't know. When we're getting into motivation like this, it's kind of hard to know what really is driving it. I just remember back in the day, we all have our racist grandparents, and I just kind of thought of them as the old guard. I'm like, yeah, racism is kind of just going to go away eventually once all these people die. But unfortunately, more and more I've been kind of outraged at, my peers and some of the things that I've heard said. So I just would have thought it was such an old problem. Like, we've solved it. Loving v. Virginia, we took care of it. We're on to gay marriage. Let's handle that now. But yeah, it's still a very real problem, and that's just, it's disconcerting.
Jamie?
Yeah, Matt, I definitely understand the Ruthless wonder. I definitely understand.
Not A.
The motivation that you're talking about, and I think that's not just one. There are multiple different motivations for why people feel the way they feel about interracial dating. My grandparents and some of my family members are like, you have to date a black man. We're a black family. Whereas, that's what I grew up with, and it's not that I did not appreciate or like the idea of interracial dating, but you just grow up that way. And, when you branch out and you start realizing, okay, well, that's what they're saying is wrong. I think for people to say, well, if my grandparents and my parents are wrong, then everything's wrong, I think that is a bit extreme and a kind of an excuse to just be hateful. But some people, you're right, some people do that, and some people take the other route and say, well, that's just the olden days. Things are changing. People are starting to see people for who they are and their character. Well, that's another extreme end of that argument too. But there are different motivations for it. And I think that Eric's right. Once a certain generation passes on, then there won't be as much of a hate towards interracial dating. And there are people in our generation who still are against it, but from experience, I know that's a lot of talk and not really how they truly feel.
Now, I think you both bring up two interesting points. And that brings up an interesting point that I want to deal with separately. Eric, you talked about, so the Loving v. Virginia decision, and that we sort of dealt with interracial marriage and interracial dating. And now we're dealing with this issue of gay marriage and same-sex relationships. Here's my problem with saying that we're done. And I will fully admit to this being one of Ruthless Wonder's personal issues with the way things are portrayed in media. I loathe bringing this up. Seems to be, just to me, that it's perfectly okay in the media to represent a non-white woman with a white man, but they will not do the reverse. For instance, there is basically no outcry when you see a commercial where a black woman or a Latina woman or an Asian woman is with a white guy in it, either advertising for a dating site or just generally selling a product. But the Cheerios ad, yeah, I'm bringing that up. The Cheerios ad was a nationwide issue because the little girl was biracial and, shockingly, her father was black and her mother was white. Now, to a degree, yes, that's old stereotypes not dying. But my problem is, if we've really dealt with interracial dating and interracial relationships as far as marriage is concerned in America and in the world at large, the kind of backlash, that was covered on Fox News that they had a problem with it. That kind of backlash doesn't seem to say we've dealt with the issue. And I wonder, and we're going to throw right back to you, Eric, since you're the person to bring up this portion thing. I wonder whether or not that is an issue that's truly done, or whether we only feel like it's done because the people our age it's less likely to be heard about. And we'll throw it back to you, Eric.
I was actually watching a YouTube show that talked about this a little bit, and I think they mentioned exactly that it's far more acceptable to see, a white man with a woman of another race, and then the other way around. And they used Will Smith as an example, and kind of just showed a bunch of screens where like all he's ever placed was most of the female actresses he's placed against are, black women or light-skinned Latino women. So that's not something I've ever noticed in my life. That's very interesting. So I think you have a point there. There obviously is still some room to grow. I love quoting Loving v. Virginia. It's a great case. That was 1967, so it's been quite some time. The fact that we still have a lot of work to do is, I don't know, kind of sad, right?
Exactly. Jaime, any thoughts?
I do have a thought on that. You got to take it back to even as early as the 1990s, when some state laws were just now making interracial dating not illegal. They used to be illegal, especially in like Alabama, Mississippi, and those states. So this is a relatively new concept as far as it being out to, I'd say, 30% of America. So there's still room to grow because people are just now even accepting it. And as far as the white male with the with a woman of a different race. I think it's fairly new to see that with black women too. Of course, we see it with Latinos and the Asians, but with the black women, it's kind of a new phenomenon too. And I think it's a beautiful phenomenon, but it's new. And we just got to give it time. And back in, I don't know if you guys have ever just glanced at like the KKK website or whatnot and their little constitution. But even there, they say it's a sin for a white woman to be with a black man. It's a sin. And that has been ingrained in so many people's brains, whether they want to believe it or not. And there's things like that. It's going to take time to just weed out, especially when organizations like the KKK still exist. It's going to take a while for that not to be at least a forethought or in the back of someone's mind whenever they see, especially a white and black couple. That's my view.
Now, I don't want this to get into and Eric, don't worry, I'm about to piss off a section of our readership that's usually pissed off by me. So to get this away from white male hate and into black woman hate, Eric brought up this sort of the idea of segregated proms, and that's actually something we're going to get to here in a second. But I can't talk on this subject without bringing up the 9,000-pound gorilla sitting in the corner with her weave on in the White House. Scandal. Olivia Pope is supposedly everything black women hate. She's subservient to a white man and is the side chick to the president, to the white president, who is married. She basically comes whenever he wants her there and does whatever he needs and keeps him out of trouble. But I can't even count on my hands and feet the amount of women who have been angry at some point posting on Facebook about how bad it is for black men to date women who are not black women. Now, obviously the two of you are very enlightened folks. You are not, racist assholes. I don't need to turn this into some sort of, intervention session over the internet where I tell you how evil you are and you release the demons from within and we call it an exorcist and all that jazz. We don't need to go there. But how can one be okay and be popular? And the two of you have seen it on your Facebooks. Every Thursday, women of all races fill up Facebook and Twitter and Reddit in some cases with stuff about scandal. But then the next day, not only is cheating not okay, but if they put it in the reverse, where a black president, was cheating with a white woman, pick one, that would be an outrage that would never shut up. You think Barack Obama could have gotten reelected if it had been found out at some point that he had some white woman fixer with blonde hair that looked like stereotypical Swedish, runway model that was helping fix everything at the White House to keep things from getting out. And he was also, sorry for the crassness, piping down in the Oval Office in the evenings. You think that would be okay? You think, number one, you think Michelle Obama wouldn't have beaten the crap out of the woman? But do you think that would be okay? I feel like every news organization would be flooded with people complaining about that. Yet it's okay in the reverse. We glorify it in the reverse. Scandal's an insanely popular show. Yet, if you do the reverse, where Taye Diggs was the, I want to say he was a black lawyer in the TV show, and he had, the father of his daughter was black, but the new woman he was dating was a white woman, and that show got canceled in 6 episodes. 6 episodes. I'm just saying, it seems like we have a confused mentality about it, and it seems like there's a difference between the two. That's me getting off. I'm going to get off my soapbox about scandal now. because I know I've pissed off enough people. And we're going to move on to the sort of idea of segregated proms. How do you all feel about this idea that people very vehemently believe that based on their faith, they shouldn't mix up different ethnicities in their families? This idea that it's okay to be separate in public functions based on some personal internal beliefs and the fact that they have power. How do you all each feel about that?
Sure, I'll go for it.
Jamie, you want to go first?
That's total crap. I always believe people have their beliefs and they'll look for anything to validate their beliefs. Separate proms, if you want to waste the money, go for it. But it's a total waste, and it's degrading to both races. And that's just my view on that.
Well, and I know this is going to be a little controversial, but talk me through it here. I think there's a key difference between a public school doing it and private school doing it. I find it abhorrent, the idea of it, ridiculous waste of money, and abhorrent to, one's morals. But if it's a private institution, aren't they kind of within their rights to do that if they so choose? They're not, violating anything I can think of right now.
To quote Law, then we're talking Heart of Atlanta hotel. That's a private hotel chain that, because of its entering in the stream of commerce and the ability for it to access federal funds for different purposes, it was held to the same standard as a public institution as a public institution or a direct state-run institution would have been.
The old Commerce Clause.
Yeah, when you have a private school, private schools, unless they are a parochial religious institution, still have to pay taxes. If they're a not-for-profit, then they have to file with the federal government and receive certain benefits in tax fashion for it. So, and most schools receive some level of federal funding. So you can say that to a certain degree that they have to have some state action, therefore.
Yeah.
Could be a state actor and be held to it. But that's a whole separate legal argument that I know everyone just said, I don't want to hear this about. So
their eyes went cross. Well, no, that's the good point, though, because I was seeing the golf club analogy. Like, golf clubs do that all the time, so because they're a private institution. But, well done with your legal argument, sir.
Yeah, well, and that's the golf between the golf club and the school is the one key difference, that the school has to give an accredited degree, diploma at the end of the child's time, whether it's a K through 5 or whether it's secondary graduation. It has to meet with state standards as far as education is concerned. So they have to meet state requirements, meaning that they could be held to the same standards. But like I said, that's a whole separate thing. Which is why they can't outright ban, and that's why the segregated proms have been such a legal issue everywhere that they still occur. Because what space does that occupy? Prom is an extracurricular activity, not necessarily put on by a club, but it's paid for by the students paying to go to it, and it's an event unto itself. It doesn't affect their ability to graduate or not. So it's a question of can you hold them still responsible for it, even though the school, while putting it on and essentially allowing for security and things of that nature, doesn't directly handle prom. So we got way too serious with that. Let's lighten it up a little bit. I wanted to, and I kind of want you guys' reactions, because it's a fairly old article. I wrote it quite a while back, but it is one of the ones that began with my love of the hate mail I receive every few days. I wrote a while back about basically the problem with internet dating for me was that there are a lot of profiles where folks say, don't contact me if you're this color, don't contact me. Like, it's at some level, does interracial dating, and this is where we get to the heavier, let's talk this out, conversation. At some level, does having a preference become a racist action? And here's what I mean. there are a lot, and I'm not going to pull them up right now, but I could pull up about 5 or 6 profiles that I have looked at even in the past month on a certain website that I tend to use from time to time when I feel like not being bored and taking a woman out to go to a nice meal or something, where they have said, all this stuff, like really nice information. They're a fairly professional person, and then they end their profile with "Don't contact me if you are," and pick a race. Now, I'm not just picking on the ones that say no black men. There are profiles from black women who have said no white men, no Latino men, no whatever men, and for whatever reason. I'm sure there's some more offensive ones out there, but at some level, is assuming that you will not be attracted to a certain race less preference and more an internal prejudice about certain races? And we'll start with Eric.
Oh, right on. Thank you. Yeah, no, that's a really interesting thought. I really don't know how to answer that. There's always institutional racism, which I think by definition, unless I'm getting it wrong, is sort of the racism that you don't know you're doing and that you don't even think about. It's all subconscious. And maybe that choice preference that you're talking about is in that realm of just that, like subconscious racism. Me personally, I hope I've been pretty good in my life about leaving myself open to any opportunity that comes. Not enough women are interested in me, so why would I be that extra choosy when one is,
My turn?
You can find Mr. Hanson on Facebook. He's currently single. He's a ginger.
Man.
Edith Beach. Ladies, he will go to Tampa, but he is also in Orlando at the moment, so he can go to Cocoa. Whichever beach you want, he's there for you. He's there.
Why are you trying to put an Irish man on the beach,
man? So, Jamie, I wanted to get your thoughts as well.
My thoughts. Actually, Eric is actually a very handsome man, and he's very smart, ladies. Well-read, too, so don't miss out on your prince.
Yes, we do have that. All three of us have that in common.
Internet dating preferences. I think there may be an underlying racism or prejudice, but also I think that it might not be that deep sometimes. Let's say if I were to have a profile and I have an ideal man, I want him to be at least 5'11". I like dark hair. I like a guy who has a certain religious background. Then you kind of already know, well, he's going to have to look like this, and he's probably going to be in this race. So let me just click on these preferences. So it might not be that deep. It might actually be shallow. Some people might actually, when they say, well, if you're a black man, I only talk to black men, or I only want to date white men or whatnot. I think it just may not be that deep.
That's an interesting thought. And my fellow 5'9" guys listening, look, guys, I'm sorry. I tried to find you a woman that like guys at 5'9". We're hated on. It's okay, fellas. It's okay. Be strong. Be strong out there. But no, I think you have an interesting point there. And to a degree, yes, it is clearly about shallowness. But there is something to be said for, and we're just going to keep it fairly simple, a black woman who only dates white men, a black man who only dates white women, a white woman who only dates black men. Like, if you are, I feel to a degree, you have some racial hang-up that you have not addressed as a person. If you are pigeonholing exactly who you want based on race and ethnicity, and not those other things you just mentioned, it's okay for women to like tall men. I hate you all for not liking me, but it's okay for women to like tall men. Same thing. It's okay for women to not like guys who who are not of certain professions. Like I see it fairly often. If you're a rapper, I don't want to talk to you. And that's a fair thing. I understand it. Certain occupations you don't want to deal with. It's just like guys. There are a lot of guys who are professionals who are going, unless you're being a waitress to be in college, pay for college, I don't want to deal with you. And it's not that they hate waitresses, it's that they don't want to have somebody whose job could keep them away from them because they need to make the money by getting tips and working extra shifts that they could be using to do other stuff. And they feel like if all you've done is waitress and you've never gone to college, that maybe you don't have the kind of mentality to keep up. And I know for women, it's a similar thing. There are certain things about certain professions and certain things about certain education levels that just make you more apt to be okay in a relationship. And that's totally fair. But when does that leave the shallow realm and become you just have a problem with these people because of this? You have a problem with rappers because you assume all rappers cheat. You have a problem with Latino women because you assume they're all going to yell at you in Spanish. You have a problem with white women because you assume they're all subservient. And either to make sure that you only date them or make sure you don't date them, has that gone from being shallow personal preference to racist and prejudice against a certain race for some whatever reason. And even though Jimmy brought this up, we're going to go to Eric first.
Thanks. I mean, of course, it's subjective. It's my opinion, but yeah, I think both directions. It's pretty just kind of racist. The person that only chooses one specific race to date is kind of being racist, and then the person who has a problem with other people of a specific combination clearly racist. So yeah, and it's out there. I mean, I guess we all kind of do it to a certain degree. You just don't want to really think about it, but just throw out like, oh, people from Antarctica, somebody always has a problem with somebody else, right? Irrational or no. I guess we're all horrible people is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Jamie?
Guess I can do that. Yeah, there may be, most likely there are racist motives behind these preferences. But, to be honest, I'd rather somebody be straight up and put it out there that they're racist. Their profile. Get it out the way, because then it's scratched off the list. It makes it easier for the person to scratch you off and say, well, you're just not my type of person. Let them find their own other races to be with. But yeah, that might be a motive, and that makes them racist, and that makes them racist. But I'd rather you put it out there than hide it and be very kind to my face, but behind my back call me something, cruel.
That's fair. We're going to bring up a very fun time in the life of Matt Williams real quick, and just to kind of give this some perspective. Oddly enough, all of us have been to Spain on the same trip. And one of the things, and I don't know how you all's experiences were, and that's actually why I'm glad I have the two of you on this particular podcast. I don't know how your experiences were, but throughout my entire time, and I've brought this up before, while I was in Spain and while I was in the rest of Europe, I have never been so free to not have any issues related to race at all. Like, you're driving in certain parts of the country in the U.S., and, you got to be a little careful what you're doing, who you're with, kind of a thing. But you have, and of course, there's the infamous moments where folks thought I was Rick Ross for some reason. But hey, it got me a free table, a free bottle, and people taking pictures of me. So whatever, I'll take it. But I noticed, the difference between the kinds of people who would talk to you and approach you in public, in a social setting like a bar or club fashion, was different there than it is here. And I don't know how you all's experience is different. I went back and really thought about it. The bars that I was at, especially when I was in the Netherlands, and to a lesser degree when I went to France, there were plenty of experiences that would never have happened back here because I was the only black face walking into this very clearly not black people location. But it was totally fine. And you know, buy me a drink, sit down, have a conversation, talk soccer, obviously. But I noticed that seemed a lot more freeing, and there was not really any tension in the air. As opposed to here, you might have the opposite. Sort of that idea of a guy walking in a suit and tie into a biker bar. You have that sort of record scratch moment, like sort of moment with things. I don't know how you all's experience is different, but that was sort of my introduction to Europe. Was like, oh wow, so this 6-foot blonde woman wants to talk to me. Oh wow, this is awesome. And it just sort of, and that was day one in Germany at the airport, and then it went on from there. So I don't know how you all felt about you all's experiences, but do you feel like we in America seem to be so caught up in dealing with our previous issues on race that we aren't allowing ourselves to sort of be more relaxed about things? And to the degree that affects dating, do you feel like in a more free on that issue society where we'd dealt with these issues more, do you feel like there would be less of this issue with interracial dating? And we'll start with Jaime.
I think there'll be, well, my experience in Spain was pretty awesome too, but it might be different because I'm a girl, and boys like girls.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
So, so I got
most of
I got plenty of love in Europe. Not the bad way, but you know what I mean. Got plenty of attention. So
didn't you get proposed to?
I got proposed to a couple of times, and yeah, I declined. But it was definitely, I was flattered. Every country I went to, there was definitely not an issue with the color of my skin. And if they did bring it up, it was more so a compliment than something that made me, less than or different. Like calling me Morena or however they say it. They were obviously hitting on me, but it's different than it is here, where if somebody did that here, of course I'd be taken negatively. If they were like, ooh, brown girl, then everyone's like, oh, he's a racist, and I wish that would change because being brown, I think, is beautiful. And I wish, if America was more so like that, it'd be a beautiful thing, but we have a long way to come. Well, not too long, but it's getting better. But if someone were to call me Morena here, then it might be looked at a little differently than it was in Spain.
Eric?
Well, first of all, Matt, one of my biggest regrets was that we didn't get to hang out enough in Spain.
Very true, sir.
I remember we did do the monastery tour together, and that was fun. So. Well, I don't know. Actually, Jaime, your last point it was something that bothered me, years ago, our first year in school. I would hear people saying it about you specifically, like, she's my brown princess. And I kind of like my internal monologue was like, really? Why isn't she just your princess, man? Like, why do you have to qualify? And I heard it enough that, I was almost bothered for you, it just seemed like it was always this unnecessary adjective that was always getting thrown in before a compliment to you. I always just kind of noticed it, thought it was weird. As far as Europe goes, I mean, I don't want to cause controversy. This isn't the controversial topic, right? The internet media versus traditional media was the controversial topic. But I think a lot of what you guys specifically got there was actually maybe because there was a bit of a novelty to it. I mean, for the Europeans, have you considered that?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, yeah. It was just
Absolutely.
Something that they have never encountered before, which was probably why you were treated so well. I was treated well, of course. I mean, I had just a blast. I talk about that trip all the time, but yeah. So I think you were just getting maybe a skewed representation of how these people really are. I don't know. Just thinking.
Well, I think it's interesting that I'm someone's, would you say brown friend?
I thought that's what you said. I don't know. But yeah, haven't you noticed that? I mean, it kind of was just seemed odd and unnecessary. Like, nah, she's your princess,
I'm princess. Yeah. That is kind of degrading. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's just I don't know if sometimes I'm being sensitive for someone when I don't have to,
And to a degree, I know what Eric's talking about. Unfortunately, rather, James, you're not the only person that I've heard that about, like where folks will reference you race first before whatever positive thing they're going to say.
Mm-hmm.
And odd that it's the three people that come to mind are rather hilarious when I think about it. But I've noticed that there is a certain weird, and I won't say that it's all negative, but it's like a fetishizing of each of the three of you ladies that happened while I was at Barry, but that seemed to also happen to other friends of mine at other points in my life, where folks will reference them in a positive fashion, but they put that race modifier on it for seemingly no reason. And yes, I will say to a degree, the novelty of a random, large black man walking around in Europe probably got a lot more attention than I want to admit to. But
you know what's and dressed the way you dress.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. But I think to a degree that even that in of itself, didn't turn into it's awesome because he's a black guy. It was, oh, well, I don't know a lot of black people. Here's a black person. Oh, and he's really cool. It became sort of that kind of a thing. Whereas here, it's almost like, oh, it's a black guy. I guess now, oh, well, maybe he is cool. But they've had that need to categorize beforehand. And for the record, if there are any more Dutch women, white or black, who own McLarens that want to drive me around anytime soon, I will gladly be back to the Netherlands as soon as possible. But like, I don't know, I just kind of noticed that when we all sort of got away from the usual fare of American culture, that there was even among us a different attitude about
Sure.
racial issues. Who cares who your roommate is? It was like, let's just go do stuff. Everybody, aside from the few drama-filled moments that were there on that trip, and after we got back, we'll leave that Bearsh's ball alone. But outside of those issues, everybody seemed to have a lot of just fun, just randomly hanging out and doing stuff. And I think I can't say that it's just Europe, and it's not partially the fact that it's a trip where we're supposed to be more relaxed. But it did seem like we were able to get away from a lot of those issues, and we didn't have this sort of outside specter of mainstream American culture around us. And sort of, because we're going to wrap up here in a second, sort of as part of your final thoughts, how much do you think that a more relaxed view of race would bring us, in this country at least, to a much more positive place? Is that something we need to be striving for, or does it need to be the sort of everyone must understand everyone's culture approach that we seem to be teaching children at this age? And we'll start with Eric because we started with Jaime.
Well, I mean, and about the Spain trip, just to play devil's advocate, I think maybe a lot of us got along because we had a new group of just English speakers, so we kind of had to just band together and navigate the territory.
Hey, I'm just saying that it was very awesome to hear every single one of the maids talk to me in Spanish every morning. That was wonderful.
Yeah, no, I loved it all, and everybody was very patient with me when I was trying my Spanish.
Yeah. They taught me Spanish.
Sorry? Oh, it clicked out. I missed it. But as far as race goes, and it's all kind of set. I don't think we can really do much as individuals to change the momentum, and I think we'll all agree the momentum is moving in the right direction. We can nitpick on how fast and if it's moving in the right ways, but I hope, I guess, call me an optimist, but I hope that over time it's not going to be an issue, and it's going to be, a couple thousand years from now, everybody's going to be gray, everything will be mixed together, and we'll have something else to fight over. We'll figure it out. But I think we're moving in the right direction. So at least that's, the optimistic point of view.
And Ms. McNair.
I think we're moving in the right direction too. I still think that the different cultures is a beautiful thing. It adds a little fun and excitement and a little mystery to being a person and a human and experiencing things. But and we should definitely accept people in their cultures. But I think it would be great if to commingle and to interracial date for that not to be so taboo. That would be awesome too. I don't think you have to pick one over the other. Both of those together would just be a very good thing.
A little nerdy thought is I think scientifically it actually will create for stronger bloodlines with more resistance to diseases if you mix races rather than, of course, sticking to your own. So there. The more you know.
There you know.
There you go. Science. All right. But, well, folks, I want to thank both of you all for, of course, joining on this podcast. We, as everyone who's listening knows, we rotate the, guest appearances, and, of course, we'll be rotating hosts. This is my last appearance on the Words Don't Do It Justice podcast until, like I said, later this year. And so the rest of our WDDIJ writers will be taking over going forward. Next month, you'll have the wonderful Miss Rain, who was on there with on my Ruthless show this past time. She'll be taking over. And after that, well, I can't tell you who's going to be in June. We've got hopefully an extra special host to go along with the extra special guest episodes that are coming up as well. I think we've gotten to a good place here. I did kind of luck out in getting, two friends who can intelligently talk about this topic without getting emotional about it. So I think everybody benefited there. But folks, I will go ahead and sign off now with my final thought. We've gotten to a place in America where everyone realizes how much is possible. And we've gotten to a point where it's best for us all, at least, to look at each other as a means of accomplishing things as opposed to the differences between us. And with all things interethnicity and interrace, we need to truly stop thinking about it as, how different am I than you? And think about it more as, what can you help me do? What can I help you do? And that might sound like, pie in the sky idealism, but it really does come back to my usual belief that success is best achieved when you can look back and say you got it the right way. That, yes, at times it requires you to do things that you wouldn't necessarily normally do. You might have to give sacrifices. Well, why don't we make the next sacrifice for America to stop being racist and prejudiced pricks to each other and make that the thing we throw on the fire to burn brighter this shiny example to the rest of the world? Why don't we make that the thing that we toss away instead of tossing away the poor, children, women? How about we toss away our racist stereotypes, discriminatory practices, and prejudices? How about we get rid of those and go forward? But of course, that's a question, because I don't normally give many answers. I just make you think about more things. So, signing off for the Words Don't Do It Justice podcast, along with Eric Hanson and Jaime McNair, I am the Ruthless Wonder, not a Ruthless Wonder, and you have just witnessed the birth of an empire. Goodbye.